live to be talking about how to grow your business, especially during this time of this unprecedented crisis in the world, but also ultimately when it comes to how we are looking at growing our businesses for the future. Now, so many companies right now have had to take a forced pause as shipping has been halted for a lot of warehousing. We've also seen a lot of slowdowns in terms of manufacturing, and things are starting to kind of eke back up, but we don't know when things are going to be back in full effect and full force. So we have to ask ourselves, what are really the opportunities to grow your business in a way that's going to be efficient and in a way that's going to be very scalable? So I want to kind of take a step back and go over a little bit of what we're seeing in the market right now. Now, obviously, everyone right now is likely working from home unless you are, have clearance to be able to be in the office, or maybe you're producing masks. But if you are sitting at home and you're wondering, how am I going to be spending this time? What is it that I should be doing? Think of it as this amazing opportunity. There really haven't been so many times where businesses have had these forced pauses and forced breaks to be able to take a step back and really kind of evens out the playing field here. You know, every single e-commerce business right now is being faced with big questions in terms of how they're going to be strategizing. They're faced with questions around, what does the fall and the summer look like? So these are really democratized times for us as we look to see how business is evolving. And I think that's really exciting and something to be able to look forward to. You know, a lot of companies now are starting to forecast that these, they're going to be back to normal, let's say sometime this summer. I'm certainly telling our clients here at Scaling Retail that we're going to be looking forward to seeing things really start to rebound in terms of September, October, and certainly around the holiday time. I believe, guys, that this holiday is going to be quite incredible as we look to see newness in the market, consumer spenders ready to get back out there, gift giving at an all-time high. And that means, guys, that being able to look at these different tech wholesale platforms on things like Jor, New Order, new companies like The Connection. What I love so much about them is that they're providing these new ways, and all the trade shows are doing this, new and innovative ways to be able to continue to sell wholesale in June, July, August in anticipation of this much bigger holiday time period. So markets are still there. One of the things that I think is amazing about our industry, guys, is that retail historically has always rebounded. You know, when we think about things like small businesses, fashion, any sort of retail garment, we find ways of innovating just historically throughout time. So the big question, and what I really want to talk about today, is how are you going to be growing your business during this time period? Now, I've been taking quite a few calls through our website, and we take a lot of great new phone calls, really specifically these days around crisis management. And I have to tell you, the number one question right now for everyone is, what do I do in terms of growth and scale? But then ultimately, how am I planning my business in the most efficient way possible? I can also tell you that at least 90% of the people who get on the phone with me are getting on the phone with me because they want to execute on new marketing strategies. And really the question that they need to be asking themselves is, how come my business wasn't prepared in order to handle something like this? Why did I not have the community built so that when a crisis like this happens, I'm not scrambling around trying to find ways of bringing up sales? A lot of businesses out there have been quite successful because they've been executing on community building strategies since they launched. Those businesses are able to now draw on their networks and draw on their community and draw on their fans in order to be able to support them during this time period. A great example of that, there's a company called Leather Jacket. It's LTHJKT. And what was so amazing about what they did with customer service is I went ahead and placed a purchase. They're doing all of the proceeds go back to the employees. And when I placed my order, I actually got this amazing video from one of their partners, Grace, who said, "Hi, Syama, I just want to let you know how important it is and how I appreciate your order and what it's doing for our employees." And it was a 20-second video, but amazing customer service and an amazing way to be able to connect back to the people who are ultimately going to keep your business thriving during this crisis and certainly afterwards. So looking at customer service becomes a very and very important thing to be considering as you are building upon your business, right? As you're looking to what's coming up for the future. So let's take a step back. Our focus here is how to grow your business. I know that that kind of is all over the board in terms of where we can take that topic. But we're going to drill that down, and we're going to start by asking ourselves, what are the major questions and things that you should have been asking yourself before that now you have the opportunity to ask yourself? And then how do we take that forward, and what does that ultimately look like? So what are the questions? Well, the first question that's very important in any sort of growth of your business is, what is the existing temperature check? Meaning, am I actually, going into this crisis, what were my revenue streams? How was I actually generating revenue? What were the other ideas that I was percolating on? So what actually was working well before all of this happened? What were my goals? 1 year out, 3, 5, 10 years out, how did I want to exit this business? Has anything changed from that? So your initial ideas of what you were getting yourself into in this company, has that pivoted at all? Or now do you just have the fear and panic hat on and you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, okay, I now need to figure out how to sell stuff. So the fear and panic hat has got to come off, guys. We've got to start thinking strategically. So once you kind of do a bit of an evaluation of where you were heading into this crisis and kind of what your thoughts were and how business was moving, this should then give you some sort of clear indicator. Either your business is in a position where you literally need to wait this out, meaning there is nothing you can do, or you're in the position where you can start to build and where you can actually start to make some inroads so that when we do emerge out of this crisis, when the markets are healthy, your business now has gained some competitive advantages. So what does that look like? Well, the majority of brands that I've been speaking to have had a clear deficit of communication and marketing strategies. Now, what does that even mean? That means before you start launching marketing and advertising ads, you have to ask yourself, who on earth am I selling to? She's not just 24 to 65 and makes $100,000 a year. She's nuanced. There are psychographic details here. There's a customer out there that requires a conversation to be had. There are lifestyle preferences. There are values there. And there's a way of expressing those values and that ecosystem through visual assets, copy, and an entire user experience, as well as in your price points of your garments, and ultimately, guys, in the value of the product. So when you think about communication and marketing, it's a really important piece here that stems off of the foundations of your brand. We call that a brand DNA. Your comms and marketing strategy becomes this tremendous platform for you, gives you the tools and the guidelines. It's something you can apply each season as you're developing new campaigns. It's something that you can apply anytime you're posting on social. But that kind of foundational asset is going to be really critical as you're trying to figure out, how do I grow it? Well, if I'm going to grow something, that means that I want to sell more product. If I'm going to sell more product, how am I going to sell it? Well, likely through some sort of advertising, marketing, partnership initiative. Well, if I'm going to do advertising, marketing, or some partnership initiative, how does that need to look? Who does that need to be catered to? What is the language I need to use? And then ultimately you can then assign the budgets and the timelines to that. But I think far too often when we think about growing sales, we jump the gun here on the original intent of this, which is to communicate and connect with the consumer. Rather, we start to think of ourselves as wanting to throw dollars onto maybe a crappy website for advertising, and then we're not going to get anything to convert. So if you are in a low budget phase here, meaning you don't have the resources to be able to get a communication strategy, marketing, lifestyle, positioning, you don't have those resources, then I wouldn't say bypass that step and go to marketing. In fact, I would say, how might you be able to DIY this for yourself? Now, for most of you, you've been DIYing it, which is kind of how you might be in this place in the first place, right? So finding an agency, finding a service provider who can provide you with the quality, the integrity of what it is you're looking for is ultimately going to help you get out of the you part of this, right? You're probably a creative designer, most likely, passion for product, really went into your business having an idea of who that customer was because you fell in love with this product and you really want to provide something, but there's a disconnect here, right? Usually the best creatives and product developers and designers are not necessarily the best ones to communicate, market, and be able to pitch it. That's just the way it is, right? I mean, it's hard to be great at everything. Guys, I am a crappy designer. You wouldn't want me to make a product. Trust me, not a good idea. So everyone's good at different things, right? And as you're looking at how you're repositioning and using your time right now, thinking about your core competencies, thinking about whether or not you're the best person to actually execute on this strategy, I think is very important. If you're not in a position where you can build a communication and marketing cadence and guideline to execute on in a post-COVID quarantine way, right? What are the other options and what are the other things you can do? Well, I would ask you, are you launching a business or are you launching a hobby? If you are launching a business, guys, then launching a business means you've got into your company, you started off with a budget and a timeline, which means you outline the resources that you actually needed in order to get your business off the ground, to get it operational. If you have not outlined your budgets and your timelines, you don't know what you need to get it operational, and you don't have any experience in retail, then I'd say you're still very much at that hobbyist stage where you're just kind of testing and trying things, in which case, don't put pressure on yourself to grow your sales and marketing during this time period because you're not even well-resourced enough to be able to execute on it. The worst things that I see in the world, well, no, this is an overstatement. This is like fashion dramatics, but one of the things that I see happen a lot is companies or people rather who decide to launch these luxury products, and they spend so much time and energy in developing these luxury products. And then when it comes time to actually marketing the products, what happens? Well, now they have no money. They didn't plan on it. So now you're stuck with this like amazing product. Your brand logo or ID was based on something that, it was based on something that maybe you thought of before you even started the business. So who even knows if your brand name is correct? And you have no money left in order to do the comms, marketing, and sales piece. So now all of a sudden you're sitting on this amazing product, this very high price point, no resources to execute it. So I would actually take a step back and say, okay, well, what can I do with this? What are the possibilities? Do I actually need to create a lower price point product? Do I actually need to go and raise some friends and family money? How do I get this thing off the ground? And I'm so tired of hearing people come to me and say, Syama, but this company, they were able to do it with like only a couple $1,000s, and so I can do it the same way. The secret to launching something with a low amount of capital, which absolutely can be done, is because you have networked partners, meaning you already know who you're going to call on. You know how much they're going to charge. You can negotiate. These are friends and family. These are warm, right? You either come to the table with the resources to invest, or you come with a team of people who can give you friends and family discounts, right? And actually help you get something off the ground. So I think it's important to really have an honest truth-telling moment with yourself. Am I trying to scale up a hobby in which I don't know what I'm doing? Or am I trying to scale up a business, which maybe I have the fear hat on too much and I need to take a step off of it and actually ask myself, what can I do to invest in growth? And what are the things that I don't have in place right now that I can actually put in place to help this business persevere and succeed once it's been, once this quarantine timeframe is over. So if you find yourself, hey there, Alice, awesome. And guys, if you have questions or anything, please feel free to jump on. If you guys have been following any of the, Makers Row live streams, IG lives, I know I can just talk and talk and talk about stuff, but this is certainly your time. And if there are particular questions about your businesses that you would like for me to answer, please let me know. I'm more than happy to give very specific one-on-one advice for that. Okay, so let's carry this further. So let's say you have a business, you built it out overly penetrated in wholesale. Now you're realizing, oh crap, I really should have paid attention to my e-com business. So what does that mean you're going to do? It doesn't mean you're going to go and open up a web store tomorrow. It means that you are actually going to be taking the opportunity and the moment, right? Instead of just saying, I'm going to just do this tomorrow. Okay, how might I grow my web store, right? How might I actually, put some thought into UI, UX, the brand experience? What do I want this to be? What is the ideal scenario? My most favorite way of working with clients is like tops down and bottoms up, right? You kind of end up somewhere here, usually closer up here, but it's usually somewhere, right? It's not as low as when you go bottoms up, and maybe it's not quite as high as when you start with the dream and you kind of drop it. But the goal is to get you a little bit higher. So during this time period, what you would actually be doing, guys, is taking a step back and saying, customer experience, what is my merchandising going to look like on the site? I'm overly penetrated in wholesale. Do I need to diversify my product for e-com, right? What's the cadence of communication? How am I going to build this audience? You need to basically be thinking about launching your business over again on a digital platform. It's like having two businesses. There's just no way around it. Digital and wholesale. You have two different kind of customer service operations. Fulfillment might come from one warehouse, but obviously, guys, your shipping practices are different. When you think about the needs from an assortment planning side, on product development side, very different when you build digital versus your wholesale business. So you're essentially incubating and launching a new brand online. So why would you rush something like that, right? Think about the time that it takes to do something the right way. And then now you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this tomorrow. Very, very challenging to do. All right. So I have no experience. I really want to start a business. I have a logo and a tag, become stable. Well, I think it's really wonderful that you want to start a business. I would tell you though, being an entrepreneur and being a business owner is overly glamorized. And I don't think that the realities of what it means to start a business has actually been thoroughly discussed. Certain platforms do it really well. A lot of the tech startup communities talk about, burnout in the startup space. I would say, the best thing to do if you want to start a business, and you don't know how, or you don't know what to do, or if you have the right resources, is really to do a lot of talking, talk to a lot of people who have started their companies, really get an idea of what it's like. The fashion industry, and anyone in it will tell you, is not sexy. It's hard. The climate has changed. People are a lot nicer these days than they used to be. It used to be kind of like fashion space, like, ooh, not so sure about that. That's changed a lot. The people have changed, and mostly because it's a new generation and the way we do business is different. And that, I think, is really beautiful. In fact, in times of crisis like this, having, nice people and relationships that, you can count on become more important now than ever. So I would say from a people standpoint, our industry has changed a lot. However, a lot of things haven't, meaning you are likely in many cases working with lots of different partners in lots of different places in the country or in the world. It takes a lot of time and energy to balance and manage so many working pieces. Your cash flow can oftentimes be unstable as you look to see, when am I actually getting these receipts booked? Is the product actually going to go out? Will I actually get paid? What do my returns look like? Is fulfillment actually shipping on time? What about manufacturing? They're delayed. The number of issues and problems in launching a fashion company are such that anytime I get on a phone call with someone who wants to start a business, I almost feel like it's my duty to scare them and to say, are you sure? You really sure you want to do this? Because it takes a certain kind of disposition, right? And fortitude and determination to be able to connect all the pieces, and especially if you're not highly resourced, a lot of financials to back you. It takes a lot of working pieces and a great deal of confidence, right? Because you're saying, hey, I believe that this belongs in the world, right? So I'm going to stand behind it strongly. And certainly in an industry that's wrought with imposter syndrome. So I would say, guys, yes, it's wonderful to want to start a business. Once you start it, though, you're then in that phase of how do I grow it? And so I think it's also important to differentiate kind of how we're thinking about, how we're starting to think about things like, the startup phase versus the growth phase. When we talk about growing your business, I'm assuming that there are a number of things that have already been working in your business. Otherwise, you need to grow it. So something's working, right? And it's here and it's static, and then you grow it. If you don't have any sort of inflection here in terms of sales or marketing or some traction, right? So traction as defined by social proof traction, and then traction also as defined by sales traction. If you don't have traction, you're not ready to grow because you're still stabilizing yourself, right? So as you're growing your business, the key components and things to consider at this point would certainly be things like, how am I looking at, I'm growing my business, how am I reinvesting my resources, right? If you're heavily indexed in e-com, great, this could be a really amazing time for you, but you also might want to be asking yourself, aside from product diversification right now, which might be really helpful for you if your brand is already established and has high traffic, you might be asking yourself, how might I be able to diversify my marketing channels, right? Maybe direct to consumer is quite important. So I think that's really an important thing to consider. All right, guys, one more question here. How do I know if I'm pricing my product properly? Ooh, it's a nice alliteration. Pricing my product properly for my target audience. Great question. So Matthew, when it comes to pricing your product, you really want to ask yourself, it's very simple and not simple. Simple in the sense that from a competitive matrix, you should know kind of where your competitors sit, and then also strategically where your business fits within that, right? So competitively, you sit here, see what your competitors are doing. Also ask yourself, my favorite example here is you can sell a black cotton t-shirt for $5, $25, $50, $300, $1,200. The difference here is branding, right? They all cost the same amount to produce, maybe some differences here. But a lot of this is in your competitor. So where do you sit? When it comes to your perceived value, when it comes to your positioning in the market, a lot of it is where do you sit and where do you fit in the market? And then looking at your price point, right? So that's kind of the tops down, right? Where do I want to be? And then you take a look and say, okay, where are my cost of goods coming in, right? How am I gonna actually figure out how this thing is gonna be priced out? What's labor looking like, shipping, poly bags, all of that other stuff, right? And you kind of find yourself, all right, this is where this is coming in, this is where this is coming in. And then you start to see where is that wiggle room and where is that margin coming in at. So you don't know if you're pricing it properly until you do some of that work. And then ultimately, when you start to do things like selling online and you see how people are responding to your product, you're not going to know if it's a price point thing if your branding, UI, UX, and the way you deliver the product isn't in a very cohesive, branded way. You actually won't know what's wrong. And this is one of the reasons why I tell brands that, when you launch a fashion company, it's not as if you are launching a tech company. Meaning, it's not as if you're going to say like, oh, this is Dropbox and this thing works. And all of a sudden, I'm going to use it a lot and share with my friends. It doesn't matter how good it looks. With a fashion company, you go onto the website. The first thing I ask myself is, does this resonate or land with me? If it does not resonate or land with me, it actually doesn't matter how much the thing cost anyways, because your images, copy, branding, all of that didn't land with me. So with e-com and direct-to-consumer businesses, guys, how you start to look at your, your own consumer-facing side of things is extremely valuable and really important. And I would suggest that if you're launching a brand, I always tell people, take the dollar amount that you are going to invest in your production, put that in your branding and your marketing, right? Very, very important. Not something that you actually want to be overlooking, right? You want to make sure that you've got enough resources to create the perfect experiment to then be able to test into the market. It's all about the perfect experiment. All right, guys, I'm going to share a few more thoughts here on growing your business. It's always a pleasure to be here with Embark Live and Makers Row. Being an expert and being able to deliver quality content to people is very important to me. Education has always been at the forefront of why I started to do what I do in the industry. I started this business back had the idea to start the business back in 2008, started taking on clients back then, and incorporated scaling retail in 2013. And when we eventually, we incorporated and we kind of started to really do this, I can't believe it's been 7 years. One of the things that was so important to me was the ability to cut through the noise and the ability to share with people, what's behind the curtains. How do you actually hack the business world of fashion? How do you create something that's innovative? How do you build the right brands with the right people? It's not just about building a business model. It's not just about seeing what someone else did and replicating it. It's about looking at your own core competencies and your own brand values and what you value as an individual and human being, and then taking a step further and translating that and kind of seeing how that can be reflected into the world and how you can build a business that mirrors best business practices, but also kind of builds off of who you are. Truly, guys, that's when you find something that's sustainable. So education is really at the core of a lot of what I believe, which is why I'm so happy to be here. Okay, so let me just give a few more thoughts here on growing your business. Ooh, itchy nose. A few more thoughts here on growing your business, especially during this time period. And then, I would love for you guys to leave comments and questions and all of that. And, I plan to be back on here often so we can continue the conversations then. But a few more thoughts on growing your business. So at this point in time, I would say, just to kind of get back to the beginning, growing your business right now, today, it is so critical for you guys to take a step back and say, where am I bleeding money? Where can I actually cut my losses, reinvest my resources, find the right talent at a less expensive price? I'd also be asking myself, what are the revenue streams that I should be looking at that I have previously ignored? What are the marketing activities that I should have been working on that I previously ignored? Now, neither of the answers to those two questions should lead you to some mad dash down the finish line. That is not how you will succeed, so don't do that. But it should actually lead you to asking yourself deeper questions. So if I was to run this marketing channel, if I was to open up this revenue stream, how would I want this to look and feel? What is the intent and purpose of this? How much money can I allocate towards building out this new thing? Who do I need in order to execute this properly? Now, foundationally, there might be holes in your business, in which case this is a great time to plug those holes. Talked to someone earlier today, told me she hired a social media company to be able to help with doing social. And I basically said to her, well, did you, and the social did not look good, right? I was like, this is not what I would anticipate if you hired an agency. And I said, well, she's like, are they good? Are they not good? Should I work with them? And I asked her, I said, how well equipped did you give your social media agency? How well equipped were they? What did you enable them with to be able to produce an excellent product? If you do not enable your people, if you do not enable the agencies, if you do not enable anybody to do their best work, then the responsibility of that work performance is on you as the founder CEO and not on them. So when you are looking at kind of evaluating your partnerships and you're evaluating your systems, you really need to take a step back and ask yourself, where have I potentially gone wrong in executing this, right? Where are actually the missteps here that I should be able to go back and fill in? And I think that that is a very important self-reflective moment and thing that you can actually be looking at right now. Once you figure out these foundational holes, you want to look at your leadership holes. So how are you not being a great manager? How are you not producing the best results from your people? It might be your people, but it may also be you. So you also need to take a look and start to plug in those holes as well. All right, I'm going to take one more question, guys, and then that's going to be it from me. Okay, so Veronica, any tips on choosing first recognizable product to launch? Better to focus on uniqueness or easy manufacturing? What kind of market research can help? So Veronica, it really depends on what your intent is for business. I do not have very much information on how much money you want to invest, how fast you want to launch this business, what kind of volume you want to see, what you want your exit to look like. I also have no idea how well connected you are, right? What are your core competencies? What do you bring to the table? So in order to build the right business for the right person, you kind of have to have answers to all of that. So I actually think your question is very appropriate in terms of really doing some of the investigation before you just launch into something. Successful businesses are built with best practices of business, but they're also built with the people and the business owner in mind in order to be able to create something that really works. I would never in a million years give a 5-year, $25 million scalable plan to someone who only had $20,000 in the bank. All right, that is not what I would do. I would actually figure out what's the best thing to approach this, right? Like, how might we be able to build something that maybe will be able to grow at a healthier rate, where you can actually test that $20,000 and see where it's going to go. Now, obviously, guys, we're living in a very rare time where we're seeing companies that are launching with masks take off with a tremendous amount of steam. Definitely a unicorn in today's economics. Very interesting and amazing to be able to be a part of that, to see these brands take off and to be able to support those launches. But at the same time, right, you also have to be agile. How long is that market going to last, right? How much are you investing? How much of your time are you putting into this? What's the ROI on that investment? Are you taking away from something else in order to enter into a new revenue stream? There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's one of the reasons why I stopped doing like group classes and stuff, because everyone's business needs are so different and everyone needs customized support to build something that's scalable, that they can work with and grow from. So your best bet is actually not investing in a lot of different things in order to kind of just get a lot of random information. Your best bet, guys, is to invest it in yourself, figure out what you want out of your companies, build your businesses according to your own lifestyle, your own needs, and your own exit strategy. All right, guys, that's all for me. I'm Syama Meagher, CEO of Scaling Retail, and I greatly appreciate your time and energy today. Thank you for tuning in. I know we're broadcasting on a number of different platforms. I'll be here again next week, and I hope to hear from you. I'm so excited to now be on Facebook and YouTube and